Hey, superstars, welcome to the Get Rich Without Being a Bitch podcast. And I am your host, Vanessa Shaw, for this journey. We're going to be challenging some stereotypes, shattering glass ceilings, really looking at what it takes to live richly and to design a business that's going to support the life that you really want to be living. I'm going to be sharing lots of tips, tools, and strategies along the way, and I can't wait for you to join me on this journey. Superstars, welcome back to another episode of Get Rich Without Being a Bitch. And I'm very excited. We're changing up the format today. You've been having a lot of solo episodes with me. We've just been doing a sequence that are specifically for women-owned law firms. And I think this topic today is going to be so on point for those of you that are like getting burned out, frazzled, doing all the thing, all the plates in the air, and you know you need support. So I am very excited to welcome Laura Licursi to the podcast. Just before we get started, I'm just going to give you a quick brief bio. She is the founder of Elite Virtual Assistants, a premier agency providing US-based fractional, executive and legal assistants and paralegals to professionals in the legal space. She has a strong background in business ops and a heart for service. Laura is passionate about helping attorneys delegate with confidence so they can focus on what matters most. I think from now, they're going to start to see, Laura, why I have invited you to the podcast. Since 2015, she's built a reputation for pairing clients with proactive, high-caliber support and fostering long-term success. Laura's mission is simple: to bring clarity, calm, and connection to the chaos of entrepreneurship. Laura, welcome. I'm so excited for our conversation today.
Yes, me too. Thanks, Vanessa. Thanks so much for having me. And I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah. Tell me, what got you, I always love to know like the backstory, kind of what got you starting this business?
So I actually started doing this myself, working from home when I left corporate America, when I started a family way back in 97. So yes, I'm dating myself. But I kind of, created my own little stream of clients. And then in 2015, I was kind of ready to take it to the next level. Not really knowing what I was doing, but I kind of figured it all out and started, really getting into the business world. And about a year in is when I first got introduced to our first attorney client. And I don't know, it's just been a really big piece of our business and just very, I don't want to say easy, but it's just seems like a very natural flow to, be working with attorneys and being able to really bring in that great like legal assistant and paralegal talent. And yeah, it's just kind of flourished ever since then. But the root of it, as with everything, is family. So,
Yeah, totally. No, I love that backstory. And I think just a good pointer for people listening. I mean, frankly, whether you are running a law firm or whether you're a woman in business, because a lot of the topics that we cover, they are valid across the board. I think an important point to make is, I'm niching down, or we have niched down to serve exclusively women-owned law firms. We've been doing that for many years, but it's like where we're really putting our focus. You're also in the process, right, of doing that. And I
yes.
think it's really good for our listeners to know that you and I, yeah, we have been around for a bit, right? We've both been in business for a bit, and it's ever evolving. So I just want anybody to like be listening in. If you're thinking, oh my gosh, it's too late. I'm stuck in the business model that I've built, for all these years. It's never too late. I'm a firm believer in as we evolve, right? Business needs to evolve with us. And that often means client base. But getting back to attorneys, and specifically women-owned law firms. What's one of the first signs that, a woman, the founder has got herself stuck perhaps in her current like business model, and she really needs to get some support so that she can shift? I think you and I use the same language. Like we say, talk about shifting into, away from being the attorney and being the CEO of her firm.
Yes, yeah, and I know that's a hard thing too, a lot of times for them to wrap their heads around. But it is, when they are the bottleneck for everything, when things start kind of slipping through the cracks, and you can only do as much as the amount of hours that we have in a day, and you can't expand beyond that time because it's limited. And you know there's always this, great big grand, I want to start this business for freedom, but what ends up happening is we end up almost chained to our business sometimes, right? Because we are doing it all. And when you start to see that and you start seeing that you are the bottleneck and you start seeing the burnout, that's when you really have to kind of decide, like, do I want to keep going at this pace? Or do I want to actually lead and become the CEO of my firm and, just be able to have help so that you can actually grow and enjoy your life outside of work?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I get it. Again, I certainly didn't go into business. I mean, in the early days, right? Of course, we're so excited about getting clients and doing the work and learning all the things. I mean, I was completely addicted to that whole process, but I never, ever wanted it to take over my life. And I
Yes.
certainly went through, right, those phases, where all of a sudden it's like, no, I'm playing catch up on the weekend, or putting the kids to bed, and we're doing emails, right? When the kids were young. And I'm like, that's not what I wanted my business to be. So I hired Laura, a virtual assistant. I'm going to brag for a minute here because this is when we've got age. I've been, 20 years in business this year. So, a little bit older than 35, let's say. But I'm an OG in actually being in the online space and actually running a virtual business, because I've only ever run a virtual business. And I think a lot of people don't know that about me. And my very first assistant was a virtual assistant. And we are talking back in something like 2006.
Okay. And
So
that was the early days.
we're talking really the early days. I don't believe that the term virtual assistant actually existed then. I cannot remember what the term was, but I know that she was the only thing I knew. Well, and going back to some of those pointers that you're talking about, I had landed this very big contract with a major law firm. It was growing way beyond the initial scope. And there were days when I was becoming as stressed out as the attorneys that I was supposed to be helping. And this was all about peak performance, stress management, emotional intelligence, right? And
Yes.
and I could see the warning signs of like, oh my goodness, I'm becoming like them. How can I really serve them? And my calendar went back to back to back. And some of my clients have heard this today, when I was doing 8 to 10 coaching sessions a day. I mean, it was insanity. It was absolute insanity, to the point where, I mean, yes, I couldn't pee. And I say that because I know that there's a lot of women that are listening to this and they can't. They're just
Yep.
not taking a break.
Yes.
And I was almost begging that I wouldn't get more clients because I couldn't handle them. And that was when I had this. I don't know who told me or how I even found out about it, because I was in Switzerland. And as I say, I hired somebody part-time back in the UK to actually manage my scheduling. That was the biggest challenge, because these were busy attorneys. They'd be called, into different countries and all sorts of different things happening. And I just didn't have the bandwidth to even reschedule them. And so
Mhm.
that was what we did. But to your point, I could see that things were falling between the cracks. I couldn't keep up.
Yes. That's
So
exactly what happened to me too, Vanessa. When I started my business, my kids were young and I was trying to be the everything, right? Run the business, be there for the kids. And I was doing the same thing, up early in the morning, working in between schedules, working into late at night. And I said the same thing. I said, this isn't why I started this. Because when I was a virtual assistant, like much like you, I did that when I came out of corporate America in 97, which was a year before Google even came out.
yeah,
So
there you go. Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't even a thing. And that was an easier job than having a business, right? Because you had those set hours and I did my thing.
Totally.
So yeah, and I started the same way you did. I had one virtual assistant, and then, that kind of did a little bit of everything. And then
Mm-hmm.
as the business grew, you could see the roles getting more defined. And then
Mm-hmm.
I could actually like kind of put people into those roles. So it was gradual, but I needed that person so that I
Yeah.
could stop, just like you, that crazy all hours work.
Yeah. So let's just speak to, because I think there is a little point here. And again, I guess it's, advice around any woman that's listening to this today that is already completely frazzled and feeling maxed out.
Mhm.
Because I hear this a lot. I haven't got time to hire. I
Yes.
haven't got time to train. And again, I know that I've gone through that, right? When I've just been so busy that the thought of getting support, yeah, ideally it sounds great, but it actually just sounds like another massive thing on my to-do list. So what sort of guidance can you offer for that, that woman attorney that's struggling with that, and kind of should she be looking for things, kind of earlier on before she really gets that frazzled? And or what does your company help take off their plates so that this doesn't become just this other massive thing that they've got to deal with?
Yeah, and I think you hit on a really good point there because that is a lot of times what stops people because the thought of bringing somebody on is so overwhelming. They just don't even know how or what they're going to give them to do. And to your point, it's always better to bring somebody in. I don't even want to say before you need them, but before you're so buried that you can't comprehend it because it seems like
Yeah.
another job. And I know a lot of times that mindset is I can do it faster than I can teach somebody to do it. However,
Yep.
if it's a repeatable task, which is what I always tell people they need to start with, if it's a repeatable task, that task is now off of your plate. Yes, you have to show somebody how to do it, but then they own it and you don't. And those are
Yes.
the things that you can, really start to see that clearing and actually get some of that time back, whatever you want to do with that time. And the other piece of that is really figuring that out and having like, you need to go in knowing what you want this person to do. Like, the worst thing, and it actually did just happen with one of our clients, is just come in and show me the value that you bring. No, there,
Oh no,
that is
no,
so vague.
no.
You've got to have some work. And the little one thing that I like to tell people to do is just start keeping track of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I know again, when you're busy, it's very hard to do that. But at the end of the day, if you can scratch out 5 to 10 things that you did that day, if you can do that every day for 30 days, you will see such a pattern and you'll be able to say, okay, this is something I do. I spend this much time every day on it. This is going to be the first to go. And then you kind of have this list that you can work through that you'll be able to, kind of delegate to somebody else. And the other benefit of the repeatable task is that you're keeping somebody involved. So
Mm,
if you're just bringing somebody in to do like a little bit here and a little bit there, it's hard to build that relationship. And, you really want to consider them as part of your team because they are. Like the worst mindset too is, well, they're just a VA. They don't need to know this, and that. But they really need that full picture
hmm.
so that when it comes to that point, like this is how I can see value because, or add value because I can see where you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a fine line, isn't it? Because I'm really thinking back to, as I say, that very first VA that I hired. And I think the mistake that I made, if I'm not mistaken, again, it's a long time ago, I think I only hired her for 5 hours a week.
Hmm.
Right. Now, it wasn't 1 hour a day. I definitely had, I don't know, 2 hours, perhaps two and one, perhaps it was something like that.
Yeah.
Because to your point, I wasn't prepared with what did I actually want her doing. Like I just got this down to this scheduling thing, right? That was like the immediate thing. And the truth is, had I stopped and paused, I would have been able to think of a lot of other things where she really could have added value, because it would have been valuable to have had certain things off of my plate, right? And I think when you said like come in and show how you add value, like we have to show what's valuable for us, right? And what are we getting off our
Exactly.
plates? And obviously we can get into the quality work and all of those things that is important. But to your point, I think it was too scattered. And so with only 5 hours, she couldn't get that involved and it
Right.
fizzled out. And then the next VA that I hired, I was like, okay, learn lessons from here. As from now on, it's minimum 10 hours.
Yes.
So that they could at least, and of course, quickly we got into, 10, 20. Now we're hiring full time. And it grew from there. But I love what you're saying, because we say, in BGA, Business Growth Academy, very similarly, when somebody's at that point, is we call it a time and energy audit for lawyers. But it's
Yes.
really that, yes, as an attorney, you're typically tracking your time anyway. So you've often got tools that you could be using to actually, and a lot of our attorneys are actually smart in tracking all of the admin time that they're doing, right? It might not be as specific as it needs to be. But as you said, it shows up then quickly, all of those repeatable tasks.
Yes.
Whilst it takes a while to train somebody, once they're trained, it's off your plate forever. Whereas we all say, if you keep it on your plate, you are keeping it forever. Like, remember that.
Right.
You are remaining the assistant.
Exactly. That is a key point. If they don't have an assistant or they don't have a paralegal, they are the assistant and they are the paralegal. So, you're constantly swapping those hats out, and that makes it very difficult to grow.
Yeah.
It's very hard to grow that way.
Can we talk about the financial aspect of this as well? Because
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I something tells me that you and I kind of approach this similarly. Because again, some of the pushback, right? It's what are we going to get them to do? Right. So we hear that. So we say exactly the same thing. Start doing a note. What do you want to have off of your plate? What is draining? What are you tolerating, frankly? What are those things that are boring? Sometimes we get pushback on, well, if it's that boring, I don't like doing it. Why should I ask somebody else to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, we get that question a lot. But the thing is, what you find boring, somebody else really thrives on doing that, right? It's kind of like a garage sale where somebody is selling something they don't want anymore, but to somebody else, it's like, oh my gosh, I've been looking for this. Like everybody has their own. I taught a delegating course a couple of years ago, and we referred to your zone of genius, like
Mhm.
zone of genius, which is like, what are you really good at? What is going to move the needle forward? Those are the things that you keep, and then everything else can go because you need to be able to stay there to grow and then let somebody else handle all of the other pieces of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's hit on the financials, right? Because again, that becomes the other piece. It's like, what am I going to get off the plate? And then the fear around the financials.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious how you approach that. If you get the money objection, oh my gosh, like this feels like a big chunk of cash every month from my
Yeah.
cash flow. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think what's important to keep in mind is it's kind of like that adage of, if you're cleaning your toilets and you charge $500 an hour for your services, you're paying $500 an hour for somebody to clean your toilet. Like you have to remember that you are now going to have time to focus on growth and making more money, right? Getting more clients, being able to bill more hours, being able to focus more on what is going to move that needle in your business forward. And that's where the ROI is going to come in because you're no longer doing $50 an hour tasks when you're worth $500 an hour. There's a huge difference. You're making a
Huge.
$450 profit at that point an hour if you're able to redirect your focus into that, again, growth mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly. I mean, what we have calculators where again, we can actually calculate based on, what revenues are, how many hours you're working, how much time you take off. We can kind of do a calculation of what your hour is really worth, right? Which is distinct to a billable hour, right?
Right.
And then that's exactly what we say. It's, like all of these things that you're doing that, an admin, a VA, a legal assistant, a paralegal could be doing is basically costing your firm. So
It
it's
is.
your point, right? It's like, yes, if that's a $50 task, but you're doing it and your time is really worth 500, like you've just given away 450. Not to mention, as you said, we've talked about, the emotional stress. Sometimes it's not always about wanting to work on the business, right? And shifting. Sometimes it's that, you want some downtime so that you're not so stressed out, or we can actually go and see the kids' ballet recital or whatever it is, right? Without being on the email and constantly, juggling things.
Exactly. And I think that's another key piece too that people need to again, you need to know where you're going and where you want to be at the end, right? It's always having that vision of 3, 5 years out, like where do I want to be? If you want a lifestyle business, that's great, but a lifestyle business is not a lifestyle business if you are working 18 hours a day still. Like that's not, you can still have like your freedom, but you still need somebody to be helping to move things along so you can leave for if you want to go on vacation. The whole world doesn't have to shut down for, or your firm does not have to shut down for that week because you've got somebody that's keeping everything going for you and flowing. And I think those are the things I feel like even now, post COVID too, I feel like time is just as important to people as growth, right? Time with our family, time
Mm.
doing what we want to do is just as important to them as being able to grow. So time freedom and money freedom are really those two big things, those pie in the sky that everyone wants.
Always, always. And, even touching on like lifestyle business, right? I mean, I know lifestyle business can get quite a bit of bad rap in certain circles,
Right.
but I'm all for a business that really does fuel the life that you want to be living, right? I'm a firm believer in, frankly, as business gets better, your life should get better. Right?
Exactly.
Sorry, as business gets bigger, rather, your life should be better. But what we often see is like the opposite, right? Business gets bigger, it gets so stressful. We don't have the right support, we don't have the right systems, and life is getting worse and worse. So,
It is.
so coming back to again, I'm really channeling a few clients right now through this conversation because it's a conversation we have so often. And I can think of clients right now, they're needing to do their next hire. They're getting ready to do their, they've got their legal assistants, their paralegals. Some of them have, jumped on the VA bandwagon as well to kind of get some extra things done. And they're getting ready to hire their attorneys. And then I can think of other conversations where the very first thing when I talk about hiring, we call it rockstar team, is but Vanessa, I'm a control freak. Like this is going to be really, I'm a control freak. I need to kind of have my hands like in everything and checking everything. And I also want to speak to the fact that I also do get that, there's ethics and reputation and some very, very, very important things that when we have team working for us, we do have to have like high quality control because there are mistakes that could be very costly. So I don't want to ignore that, but I think it's more the fact that I have some attorneys that would definitely self-identify as control freaks.
Oh yes. Yeah, we've worked with a lot of them. Definitely. And I think what's key for that is you need to put the time in up front though to be clear about your expectations and train that person to give the output that you want, right? And once you see that happening, it helps you be able to trust and then step back. Like there's actually one of the things that we taught in this delegating workshop is there's like 6 different levels of delegation. And it's really understanding those levels and not getting stuck at one. So, obviously, level 1 is what? Like you give somebody the work to do, they do it, they bring it back to you, you check it over. Okay, yeah, this is great. Once you do that a couple times, then you move on to the next level. And then the next level, level 6 is delegate it and forget it because you've trained this person through all these different levels. Now you can delegate it and forget it. the problem we see is people stay on level one delegation and want to
Yes.
try everything, which then you are once again the bottleneck. You might
Yeah.
not be doing the work, but it can't move forward unless you give it the okay.
Mm.
And you really have to have that trust and that and build that within that relationship in order to move through it. And also don't start at level 6, right? Where you're like, okay, here you go, just do it. And I'm hoping it comes back good. Like,
Yes.
you gotta,
I've seen all of that, by the way. All of it.
yes. So have we.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and it's just kind of it's the same thing as you're building a team. It's still systematizing all of it. It's
Mm.
systematizing the delegation, systematizing your processes so that you will get the outcome that you want. You've got to have some structure built in there.
And some feedback loops, right? I mean, I've got a wonderful new EA virtual offshore, and she's been with me a good few months now. And we've jumped in, we've had a great onboarding process. We've kind of done all the things.
Mhm.
And then we still get off can be off the same page, right? There can be that miscommunication and things that need to be refined. So I think it's an ongoing process, right? We have to keep, it's not like, oh, you'll get to the end of your 90-day onboarding process and then everybody's up and running and like you're just sitting back. It's
Exactly.
constantly, as the leader, and listen, that's where I take it on. There were a couple of things just getting a little clunky this week. And I was like, oh, I thought I'd said that. Perhaps I didn't. Where is it? And, as the leader, I'm finding myself questioning a few things.
Mhm.
But it was like, okay, so where have I been? Like, when was the last time we had our one-on-one? Let's do a reset, right? So that we can
Exactly.
just like regroup. And I think that that's what I see happening a lot. And listen, I've been guilty of it myself, right? When we get really busy, it's kind of like that what we call drive-by delegation, right? It's like we're just like dumping,
Yes.
right? But we're
Not
not
a lot of
giving it,
clarity.
but we're
Mhm.
not necessarily checking for clarity. We're not checking in milestones, and we're not really, teaching somebody how we want it done our way and kind of developing them. And then
Yes.
wondering why, yeah, things don't get done or they come back completely different.
Yeah, and that's one of the big things. Like when we do onboarding, we actually created over the years this 90-day success plan,
Mm-hmm.
as though like the meeting cadence, that open communication is crucial. And as important as it is in the beginning, it's also important that you keep that going. Like you said, I mean, this relationship is going to be no different than a marriage, your children. Like, you don't just like get married and then just stop trying, right? Because your
Good
relationship
point. Good
crumbles. So,
point.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is the same thing. Like, you have to have those open lines of communication and be able to take that feedback as well, because a lot of times what's clear to us is not clear to somebody else,
Mhm.
like if I've seen this before too, where somebody says, I need this done as soon as possible. Well, as soon as possible to you could be 1 hour, and as soon as possible to that person is as soon as they can get to it, which might be
Yes.
days away. So, we always say, like, do not ever assign something to somebody without a hard due date, or hey, this is due in a week. Let's check in halfway through to make sure that you're on track and you understand, the scope and what have you. So communication is just key, and it's always keeping those lines open.
Always. That's what I say. It's ongoing, right? Because I love the fact that you even draw on that, like from marriage, especially because I'm about to celebrate my 30th, right? Which is
Congrats.
like next week. This is a big deal,
Yes.
a really big deal. And as you say, right, there are those times when, of course, things are flowing. I feel very blessed with our marriage. I feel like there's just so much natural synergy.
Mhm.
We don't have one of those rocky relationships, but we're constantly having to reset.
Yes.
However, there are always times and things that happen where you just start to realize, right now, we've become disconnected. Like, what do we need to do to have a little bit of time, that date night, and just kind of get back on the same page? And I agree with you. It's the same with team members. I always come back to, I truly believe that, well, and listen, I hold this belief because I find it's helpful, frankly, that people naturally want to add value. I believe that most people are coming from the place when we're hiring them that they actually want to add value. They want to be successful. They want to help, but it is our responsibility to let them know what that looks like and how they can do it. Right?
Exactly.
Like not
And I think what's
second guess
hard,
it.
yeah, very true. And I think what's really hard too, and I remember it was actually the very first client that we had as an attorney, or that was an attorney. And the one thing that he said to me that he struggled with was he said, I went to law school, they taught me how to be a lawyer. They did not teach me how to run a business. And it is different. You know, it is, you've got to be able to get into that leadership role. And like the one phrase that to me has always been helpful is who, not how. Like when we're really busy, don't ask yourself, "Oh my gosh, how am I going to do all this?" Who is going to help me do all this? Like, and especially as women, we are not good at asking for help. We're not good at it. We juggle so much naturally that it's like failure if we need to ask for help sometimes, you know? And that for me, that was a really big thing. You know, you get on that, you know, merry-go-round of I can do it, I can do it, I can do it until the plates start falling down.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I need some help.
Totally. No, we're not. I think, well, we could go off on a big tangent as to why I think that is. I mean, I think we've just been, trained societally that, let's keep us really, really busy doing it all because that keeps us in our place. That's really my version of that. It's very convenient when women are busy and burned out because we don't have a lot of energy for other things. Anyone listening to this, though, I want to give you a reframe. I think it's selfish. I think it's inherently selfish not to get support because there are other people that are there that would love to share their gifts. And I think the one piece for us as women in business, we typically hire less than our male counterparts. And I think it's a big edge for us. I think, frankly, a lot of us have got some very natural leadership traits and wonderful qualities that need to be more present in the business world. And actually employing other people, right, means that we're really we're really adding value and creating our small economies around us.
Yes.
And not robbing somebody of that opportunity for a paycheck or career progression opportunities. So anyway, I digress. You can tell, Laura, I'm passionate about this and kind of like.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I think what's important is that it's okay to feel like that, but you nailed it on the head with the selfish. Like we feel like we are being selfish if we need somebody to help us, and we need to be more selfish. And that's for most of us, that is just not inherently who we are. You know, even to take time away to go get our nails done or something. Like that's just something like, oh, that's a luxury. I don't have time to do that.
Yeah,
You should. You have to put yourself first. It's like the airline, right? Where you have to put your
totally.
mask on first and take care of yourself before you can help other people. So,
and we're such a better version. We're such a better version of us. I mean, I know you talked about at the beginning, if you're cleaning your own bathrooms, which is something I gave up a very, very long time ago.
yes.
Because I am not a good version of me if I have to do that. Do I know how to do it? Can I do it well? Did I have to do it in COVID when we were all in lockdown? Yes. Did I get the whole family involved? Anyone that was living in our pod? Yes. But again, it's back to no, I recognize I'm not a good version of me. I get resentful and then I'm not showing up for the people that matter most, which is why I really believe in getting help and support in many areas, right? Not just business.
Exactly. I have to say I'm the same way with that. I saw that in myself. Like just it would put me in such a bad mood if I had to clean. And I thought, I'm not doing this anymore. Why am I doing this to myself?
Yeah, exactly. And I love my cleaning crew and they come in and they're smiling and I can see that they're expanding as well. I'm great. Let's get back to attorneys for 1 minute because I can obviously go off on tangents with this so easily, just like outsourcing, right? And getting
It's
Um,
addicting.
it's addictive. It really is. And I listen, when you listen to this, when you start to get support and help and start to feel that relief and know that there are people that frankly will do things a lot better than you as
Yes.
well and quicker, it does get addictive. That's where you start to go, what can I get rid of next? An attorney starting out though, somebody that's in those early stages, perhaps they're being, solo, doing it all, maxed out. What are typically like the top three things that they should be delegating? They can get some help.
So again, I like to go back to whatever they're doing that's repeatable so that somebody coming in knows the job that they have to do until, the other things go. But a lot of times that could be email management, just monitoring somebody's inbox, making sure that there are not emails falling through the cracks, that client, requests are getting handled, client intake is getting handled. Just having somebody that can manage that for you instead of, because we get lost. I don't know about you, but inbox could be like Facebook or social media. Like you
Oh,
just get in it and it's like you can't get out because,
yeah.
then a new email pops up you feel you have to respond to at that moment. So email is a really big one. And your calendar. I mean,
Yes.
as an attorney, right, you are always in meetings, scheduling meetings, rescheduling meetings, whatever it is. Like a calendar is huge, and having somebody again manage that for you, be able to look at it and say, "Hey, you've got these three things coming up next week. Like, what do we need to do to help you prepare
Mm,
for that?" Just having somebody that can manage that for you. And then the client intake is really big, and the follow up. A lot of times the follow up is the piece that tends to we might be really good at that initial contact, but then you get busy and 3 weeks goes by and so as far as keeping yourself afloat, those are the three really big things people start with. A lot of times billing is another one,
hmm
that they get busy. They don't have a structure of billing yet, and they just need somebody that's like, hey, like, this person knows this money, like this has to go out, and like somebody to just really stay on top of those tasks.
The other thing that I think is, because as you said, there's so many parts of it, when we're working with our attorneys, we say, I want you thinking through the lens that like you're the surgeon. You are and again, top of mind for me because my husband's just had a ruptured Achilles. So we've been going through this,
Oh,
right? So
sorry about that. That's
I know I
bad.
use the analogy and then it's like, yeah, it's very top of mind. But when we think about the surgeon, right, and it's back to the zone of genius that you were talking about earlier, the surgeon is in their zone of genius. They are not doing all of the intake. They're not doing all of the other things, right? They're not doing all the blood pressure tests and getting you prepped and the dressing and all those other things, right?
Yep.
They come in before, they'll do that initial kind of consultation, answer any, big questions. But like we saw the surgeon very much at the last minute before my husband went down to the operating room, the operating block, whatever we call it, and quick check in with me afterwards. He did his thing, and then there was this whole team around, and I
Yeah,
think that's just such a great analogy for right all those things that you really don't need to be doing. Just because you've been doing them to date doesn't mean to say you have to carry on, right? So
exactly. That's a
sometimes,
great comparison, Vanessa. I mean, great, because yeah, think about everything that went into getting that surgery scheduled,
yeah,
to getting it completed. He didn't do it all himself. He had people there. He had people scheduling it, scheduling follow-ups. That's exactly, especially, I mean, an attorney and a surgeon, like they're very similar in that
very similar, right?
in that
Yeah,
manner. So yeah,
yeah.
that's a great.
So again, really thinking through that lens. What happens when, because again, I want to give like really practical things that have come up in our world, and I'm sure they've happened in your world. Somebody works with you. Well, actually, tell us. Somebody comes to you. I'm very curious. Kind of, what is your kind of matching process? Because where I'm going to with this is people that have hired, and then for whatever reason, it hasn't worked out. And now
Mhm.
they kind of feel burned out by that process because they feel like they've gone through it, they've finally done it, they've done the JD, they've hired, they've onboarded, and here they are 6 months later going, ugh, this didn't work out.
Yeah. I mean, I'll get into like how we do pairing, but what I always do as a leader and what I think you really have to look at is what actually went wrong, like what happened that it didn't work. Was it you or was it that person? Was it you not being able to lead that person, or was it the person not doing their job? And
Mm,
if they weren't doing their job, why weren't you saying something sooner than 6 months, right? So I think that there's always a big piece. I know for me personally, I always look at myself first. Like, was
mhm,
I not clear? Was I not doing something right? But as far as the pairing, like what we do is like on our intake, we basically have them kind of list out what kind of help they need, what is their personality like, what are things that they like to do, personal interests, things like that. Who's going to best support them personality wise? And then we have
yeah.
them lay out like 30, 60, 90-day expectations. Like, what is a win going to look like in 30 days? What is it going to look like in 60? We take that information, then we have our bench of VAs.
Mm,
So we don't use like an algorithm or anything. Like everybody is handpicked. So of course, skills are going to be a big one, but personality, where are you located? If this person loves dogs and you volunteer at a animal shelter, like we also try to find commonalities so that you're
mm,
able to kind of build that relationship a little faster. So there's a lot that goes into our pairing, and a lot of it goes down. What we usually do is we pair it down to about three
mhm.
candidates.
Yeah,
We do another one-on-one with them specifically for that role, and it's a gut check. Who do we think
yeah,
is really going to be the best? And that's where we've had the most success with that.
yeah, yeah. Ultimately, I mean, it does come down to things, right? And that's what I say with my women is this could be the first hire. And we always come back to, okay, let's look at what, as you said, what went well, what didn't go well, what did you do, what did you didn't not do, what could be what's the learning curve here? Because
Yep.
again, we're focused here on building the business and team. These are not necessarily skills that you've got, right? Some people are really very natural with people and kind of seeing
Mhm.
those systems. But I would say the majority of the women that we work with are way too busy running that, in the firm, right?
Yeah.
So of course that people piece can start to fall through the cracks. And
Yes.
for me, I'm always like, give yourself grace, right? Okay, it's a learning curve.
It
And
is.
to your point, let's not get to like 6 months and be frustrated. Like, let's make sure there's regular feedback loops,
Hmm.
right? So that we're having those conversations and resetting expectations and
Yes.
making sure that if there is a decision to part ways, right, it's really based off of, okay, it just wasn't a fit or
Right. Right. And
something.
that is exactly so that 90-day process I mentioned, the onboarding, that's where we really monitor that relationship close. So like at 30 days, we're jumping on a meeting with the client, the VA. How's everything going?
Mm,
Are you hitting those goals? If not, why? What's happening? What's stopping it? Is there a bottleneck? Is there a miscommunication? We open those lines up because sometimes it's not natural for somebody that,
I love that you're
doesn't like
actually involved in that.
confrontation.
Yeah,
Yeah, we do. And then, same thing goes for that 60-day period and 90-day period. And as long as we're keeping those lines of communication open, you're going to be progressing through that time. And
yeah,
every now and then, it's not going to be a good fit. And that's the one great thing about an agency is that you're not starting over. Like we've monitored close enough, we can see what happened. We can slip somebody else in that,
yeah,
so
yeah.
we
Yeah, I
all,
think that's so important. I really love that you said, because again, we have kind of playbooks and things that we'll give our clients and talk about, an onboarding process is not 1 week or 2 weeks. That's
no.
actually called orientation, people, right? It's like it's a, 90 days and the 30, 60, 90 day milestones. And one of the tips that we'll give is right at the beginning, let's put those meetings on your calendar because
Yes.
you will get busy. You'll need more than that in the first 30 days, by the way, if anyone's listening in. It's not just what we meet and in 30 days. But you'll get busy and the weeks fly by, and then all of a sudden those things aren't happening. But I love that you actually stay in that process because I agree with you. It's not always the most natural, easiest conversation to have.
Yes.
You're actually there facilitating it with both parties, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, exactly. But that meeting cadence is really important. We make you set that weekly occur. And if you have to change it, you've got to reschedule it for that week. Like you can't just keep like letting it go
Pushing
and
it off.
oh, right, because you've got to keep those lines. Like you have to be giving feedback and be open to feedback.
Mhm. Oh, so good. We could obviously cover this all day long, and we kind of need to start wrapping things up right now. And before we do that, though, I want to ask you, was there anything, a question that I didn't ask that I should have done?
Oh, you're asking me.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like something that feels really important.
Gosh, I feel like we covered so much. I think just to reiterate the importance of that initial time together, like making sure that you are communicating openly with somebody and that you are meeting regularly. Those are really the two keys to having a really good, strong relationship. I feel like we hit on so many things. Like we
That's a
really
lot.
yeah, we did. We did. But
Yeah,
I just think those are the ones that you really have to drive home. And, for those again that are just really like growth minded, you need to be thinking about who can help me with this, not how am I going to do it all. That book by Dan Sullivan is a great book.
it is. Yeah.
Um, to really be able to get in that mindset. And I think that's the other piece, actually, Vanessa. Your mindset is everything.
Mm, yeah,
It's
totally.
it's such a huge piece of it all.
Yeah. And it has to expand, right? We have that saying in the Business Growth Academy, right? Your business can only grow by the amount you're willing to grow yourself.
That's
And
right.
that needs to be like that next level leader, right? The leader that is building the rock star team, the leader that is understanding things like the 6 levels of delegation, the leader that
Right.
is having one-on-ones, that's open to feedback, that's giving feedback, like all of those things. I honestly think this is really exciting because for me, I think these are for me, these are the fun side of business. When you get people working together and aligned and there's such synergy, for me, it's just so energizing. And
Yeah.
frankly, it's impact, right? If we make a bigger impact because we hire people, that's already a level of impact, right?
Yes, it is.
Opportunities and jobs and everything to other people, that's impact. That's why I said earlier it's kind of selfish when we don't want to get support, because we're robbing somebody else of that opportunity, and then we rob ourselves of not being able to be selfish in some of those things that are like self-care, that are really actually important. um,
Yes.
and then I think about, yeah, so the hiring, but then it's like once we've got that, we can serve more clients, right? This is bigger impact,
Right.
because ultimately productivity tools, and as you said, they only go so far, and then
Yeah.
we're blocked by the hours in the day. And I think oftentimes we then get blocked by our energy before even the time runs out, because just we're getting burnt out and maxed out.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Definitely.
Laura, I really hope this is what I'm going to put out there. Laura's going to let us know how you can get in contact with her. Here's my message that I want to give: get in contact with Laura sooner rather than later. And I really mean that, because even if you can just discover how she can help you and how you need to be thinking, and perhaps you're not ready to hire, but you'll already have a resource. So that's kind of the message I want to give to you, because it's what we're saying to our women attorneys kind of all day long. Don't wait, do it before you're completely frazzled. Laura, on that note though, what are some of the ways that our listeners can get in contact with you?
So they can visit our website, elitevanow.com. They can also connect with me on LinkedIn, love LinkedIn connections, and or email me, Laura at elitevirtualassist.com.
Thank you so much. This has just been a delight today, and I can't wait to share you with our listeners.
Oh, thanks, Vanessa. It was great. This always just really gets me going, this kind of talk. So it was actually very fun.